Hello, and welcome back to Monetize Me. My name is Jay, and today I'm going to be going over one of the most frequently asked questions in the personal finance space. And that question is, how much of my money should I be saving for retirement? It's a big question that gets asked all the time, and it can be asked in many different forms. People ask, how much money should I be saving for retirement? How much money do I need in order to retire? What percentage of my income should I set aside for retirement? Or, I'm blank years old, how much money do I need to save up in order to retire by the age of blank? And the list goes on. Unfortunately, there's no set dollar amount that I can give you to answer this question. Not one dollar amount is going to be right for everybody. Everybody's in a different situation. Things like, how old are you? How much money do you make? How much money do you spend? What are those expenses? Do you plan on having the same expenses in retirement that you do now? Do you want to retire early? There's a lot of different things that you have to consider before we can even try to answer this question. Now, we could head on over to Google, type in how much should I save for retirement, and get an answer of around 15% of your income. But I'm assuming that most of you out there want a little bit more substance than that. So let's get started. First off, all of these questions essentially dwindle down to one math problem. And if we can solve that math problem, we can use the same logic, work backwards, and apply it to find the answers for all the rest of our questions. So what is this first question? That first question that we have to answer is how much money do I need in order to retire? As soon as we answer that, we can answer all the rest of them. So where do we start? Well, if only there were an equation we could use to figure out exactly how much money we need to be financially independent. So this equation right here is used to figure out exactly how much time we have left on a loan repayment plan. This is based on consistent monthly payments as well as the interest rate on the initial loan. R is the interest rate divided by 12 in order to get monthly. M is the monthly payments we're making on the loan, and P is the initial principal, or the total amount of the loan. We can reuse this formula to figure out exactly how long a retirement fund will last, given a certain rate of return, as well as consistent monthly withdrawals from the fund. Now, if we want to figure out exactly how much capital we need to last a certain amount of time, all we have to do is take this equation and rearrange it to solve for P, and P will be the initial amount we need in our retirement fund in order to be able to retire. R is going to be the estimated return we're getting on our money less inflation. We'll then divide this by 12 in order to get monthly. M is going to be the amount of money we plan on withdrawing from this account every single month. P is going to be that initial principal that we need in our retirement account before we retire. And T is going to be the time in years that this fund is going to last. Don't worry, I did divide by 12 and the 12's canceled out. Now, time to grab a calculator, or you could use Excel, and now we're going to plug in how much money we plan on withdrawing every month, the rate of return that we expect to get on our money, as well as how many years you're planning on living off of this money. For example, let's say that you're 40 years old and you plan on withdrawing $5,000 every single month in retirement. Let's also say that you plan on living to the age of 85 and the return on your money every single year is going to be 6%, and then we'll subtract 3% for inflation. Now, once you've plugged that all in, we get a grand total of $1,418,519.48 that we need in our retirement fund in order to retire. Now, all we have to do is work backwards to figure out exactly how much money you need to be saving right now in order to get to that point. We will also assume that our money is going to be compounding over all those years that we're saving. So the longer we have to save, the easier this is going to be to accomplish. It's a lot easier to save up this money over the course of 40 years than it is going to be if we only have 10. Here's a formula for compound interest if you're interested in playing around with it. Here, A is going to be the final amount, P will be the initial amount you have in the account, R will be the rate of return you're planning on getting, minus inflation, and T is going to be the number of years that it's compounding over. The problem with this is that this equation only accounts for one initial amount invested, and we're investing every single year. However, we can use this equation to create a recursive summation and calculate the return we get given a consistent yearly investment over a set number of years. I know this is all super complicated, and it might be fairly hard to do this on a calculator or if you're using Excel, or God forbid if you're doing this on paper. So in the interest of speeding things up, I'm going to use a compound interest calculator that I found online, and I'll link it in the description. This way I can just plug and chug numbers in manually in order to figure out exactly what my monthly contributions need to be. If I'm 30 years old right now, that means I need to be saving $9,075 every single month in order to hit that number by the time that I'm 40. However, if I'm 20 years old, I only have to be saving $3,252 every single month. Notice that this is much less than half the amount I would need if I was starting at 30. The return you're going to be getting on your money is compounding every single year. So every year, it's growing quicker than the year before. This is why it's so important to start as early as you can. Okay, so these numbers don't take into account the taxes we're going to have on these withdrawals. So even though we accounted for all of our expenses in retirement, like property taxes or insurance rates or food or anything like that, we also need to take into account the taxes that are going to be coming out of the money that we're withdrawing from our retirement fund. Now, the taxes you're going to see on these withdrawals are going to depend on how much of your withdrawal is capital gains, how much money you're withdrawing every single month, whether or not you're married, whether or not you still have other sources of income, and where you live. If the assets that you're selling in order to withdraw this money have been held for less than a year, then you're also going to experience higher capital gains tax. However, this usually isn't the case for retirement funds because of how long you're saving this money over. You're usually saving up for years and years and years, not a handful of months. In addition, any contributions you made to your Roth IRA when you withdraw will not be taxed on the gains. You're going to want to take all of this into account when you're trying to figure out and estimate how much you plan on withdrawing once you get into retirement. Now, let's assume you have little to no income, and this includes any capital gains distributions that may pay out of certain mutual funds, so you want to be careful when you're calculating this. But let's also assume you're married and you live in a state with no income tax. If we also assume that you're taking out less than $80,800, and this is the 2021 limit, so this may change in the future, you may not be paying any capital gains on these withdrawals because you're within the 0% capital gains income limit. This can also be useful if you're in a period of your life where you have little to no income. Maybe you're starting a business or maybe something else happened and you don't have any money coming in, but you do have investments. As long as your total income is less than that income cap, you can sell off some of your assets and then reinvest them in order to increase the principal and decrease the amount of gain you're going to be taxed on later. Unfortunately, straightforward doesn't always mean easy. You now have a way to calculate exactly what you need to do starting right now in order to be able to retire. All that's left is the work. Next step, it's time to grind. It's time to get creative. It's time to do anything and everything to start bringing in more money. It takes a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and time to achieve retirement. But I promise you it is worth it in the end. This was an extreme example I used today of retiring at 40, which is unrealistic for most people. But retirement doesn't have to be. No matter where you're at right now, no matter what your situation is, you can reach retirement. It's not just luck. There have been way too many success stories of people starting out with huge amounts of debt and then retiring with more than $1 million in their account due to sacrifice, discipline, living below their means, and properly investing over decades. One of the largest categories of retired millionaires with between $1 and $10 million in their account when they retire are teachers, elementary school and high school teachers who have never made more than six figures in their entire life. You don't need to make $500,000 a year. You don't need to make $250K. You don't even need to make six figures in order to be able to retire. It's all about discipline, sacrifice, and consistency over time. It's not going to happen overnight. And yes, it's not easy. Nobody ever said it was, but it is doable. Hopefully now you can set your sights on a more concrete goal, a single number. And yes, it is a big number, but it's graspable. Are you willing to live well below your means in order to save most of your income? Are you willing to fight for that raise that you know you deserve so that you can make more or find another job that's going to pay better? Are you willing to make huge sacrifices now in order to have that freedom later? Are you going to be motivated to grind, get that second, that third job in order to bring in the money and speed up the process? Hopefully the answers to all of these questions hold a little bit more weight knowing that they serve a larger goal, retirement. And hey, maybe that's just the push that you needed. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully it helps you calculate exactly what you need to do starting right now in order to be able to retire. That's my personal goal, is to help as many people achieve financial success as possible. And on the off chance that you already knew all this, but you watched this video anyways and you got to this point, thank you for watching too. Keep doing what you're doing, you're killing it. But either way, whether you need this video or you didn't, thank you for watching and have a good one.